there are a few reasons I wanted to use this photo to open a study of Nina's creative work. It's from a 1933 Barnard College production of Androcles, Shaw's Androcles and the Lion. For one thing, it's just a fun picture. Another reason is that I'm actively trying to change the public perception of Nina. There's a tendency to regard her as a sort of tragic Ophelia figure, mostly noted for the sad circumstances at the end of her life. This picture shows a Nina who is happy, active, and totally in her element. This photo was provided to me by Taylor Roberts. Taylor contacted me during the pandemic shutdown because he had several photos from Nina's stage career that he thought I'd like to see. Those photos inspired this whole presentation, in fact, so my thanks to Taylor Roberts. Another common perception of Nina is that she was an aspiring actress. This is not quite accurate. She was an actress, with at least a dozen credits to her name before she retired from the stage. It's clear that when Nina thought of herself as a creative artist, or as having a career of any kind, she thought of herself as an actress. As we will see, she made efforts to create a body of work that was unlike that of her famous family. And of course, Nina came from a performing family. It's often been said that during his lifetime, Mark Twain was as well known for his stage performances as he was for his books. Nina never knew Twain, but she did grow up in a showbiz family. Her father, Osip Gabrilowitsch, was a musical prodigy who was only 18 when he gave his first piano concert in Berlin in 1896. By the time he met Clara Clemens, he was already a popular performer, sometimes called the poet of the piano. He later established himself as an orchestra conductor. Clara had her own career as a singer and actress. She even starred in a stage adaptation of Twain's Joan of Arc in the 1920s. As I've written elsewhere, the accidental discovery of Nina's 1924 diary prompted me to begin studying her life. That diary provided some insights into her early interest in drama. Young Nina enjoyed a game of dress-up, what the kids call cosplay today. In May of 1924, she had herself photographed as a princess, here on the left. A few weeks later, she posed with friends, acting out the death scene from Romeo and Juliet in full Shakespearean dress. Appropriately enough, Nina's debut on stage was also Shakespeare. At Detroit's Liggett School around 1927, she performed in As You Like It. In fact, she had the lead role. That is, the lead male role, Orlando. Liggett was a girls' school at the time, so all the parts were played by women. For once, the spotlight was on Nina. During her senior year, 1927-28, Nina played Mr. Campbell, also a male character, and also the lead, in the stage farce The Mousetrap by William Dean Howells. Howells, of course, was contemporary and friend of Mark Twain's. I don't know if Nina had any influence on the choice of plays, but it's certainly possible. She was the vice president of Liggett's Synesthesia Board, the school's dramatic arts club, in her senior year. Nina wrote in her 1926 diary, quote, "Gee, I love the smells of paint and scenery, and I love the confusion that goes on behind the scenes," end quote. Getting a taste of backstage life at Detroit's Orchestra Hall in 1927, she wrote, quote, "I love any place or any bare room that savors of the stage," end quote. In 1929, Liggett presented an Anatole France play with the curious title, The Man Who Married a Dumb Wife. Nina was on the props committee, and she played Monsieur Delaurier, again a male role, but not a big part this time. Nina is quite clear on her feelings about the part, writing in her diary, quote, "I won't waste half the afternoon rehearsing for 4 damn lines." This sounds like prima donna behavior, and it may well have been, but it also shows that she was passionate about her craft at an early age. After graduating from Liggett in 1929, Nina attended Barnard College in New York City. She became involved with the school's Whigs and Q's Dramatic Society, which produced Androcles and the Lion in 1933, bringing us back to these fun photos from Taylor Roberts. It's a curious role for her, the title role, in fact. but it doesn't actually have any lines unless you count a few well-placed roars. I mean, I guess that counts as shaving dialogue. On the other hand, talk about disappearing into a role. No one is going to say, she just doesn't play a line the way her grandfather did. I'd also like to bring to your attention this front page review from that week's Barnard Bulletin. In the first paragraph, writer Rose Somerville makes 4 line-related puns before concluding, quote, Nina Gabrilowitsch was good to the last roar, end quote. The cutesy, chummy style makes it easy to overlook the most significant detail about an article in which Nina is featured in the lead paragraph. What is significant is that it doesn't mention Mark Twain. Nina graduated from Barnard with a Bachelor of Arts in 1934. Back in Michigan, she began her formal stage career working with the Detroit Theater Arts Group. In 1937, she joined the prestigious Westchester Playhouse in Mount Kisco, New York, one of the first summer stock theaters where actors like Henry Fonda and Montgomery Clift got their starts. She was torn between staying on the stage in New York or going to California to try to get into the movies. As incentive, Clara Clemens offered to find Nina an agent and enrolled her in Duffy's School of Acting, supposedly a place where studio scouts found new talent. So Nina chose Hollywood. The family visited California many times when Nina was growing up, so Los Angeles seemed a comfortable fit. Nina became part of Henry Duffy's El Capitan players, sometimes performing under the name Nina Clemens. When asked why, she joked that she couldn't pronounce Gabrilowitsch. Nina's time with El Capitan, 1938 and 39, was her most successful period as an actor. She performed in numerous plays, including works by Noel Coward and stage adaptations of Pride and Prejudice and Little Women. Nina played the cantankerous Aunt March in Little Women, and her performance was singled out in a review in the LA Times. Quote, there was Nina Clemens, daughter of Ossip Gabrilowitsch and granddaughter of Mark Twain, who proved herself a character actress of precocious gifts. Her poise and timing are remarkable, and she has a delightful sense of comedy, end quote. In early 1939, Nina performed in Claire Booth Luce's popular play, The Women. This photo from Taylor Roberts shows her, second from left, with the rest of the cast, some of whom went on to become minor players in TV and movies. Nina's performance was again mentioned in an LA Times review. Quote, Nina Clemens is unique in style and renders her comedy in cryptic stabs which are effective, end quote. I'm not sure what cryptic stabs are, but it's clear from the reviews that Nina had talent, in particular, a flair for comedy. But how good was she really? It's something she wondered about herself. She asked friends for their honest opinions. The consensus seems to be that she had real talent, but her voice suffered from excessive smoking, and she lacked the drive to succeed in what has always been a highly competitive field. In the late 30s, Clara, Nina's mother, settled in Los Angeles. The two women shared a house, Casa Allegra, but they quickly realized that this was a mistake. Nina had become a hard partying girl by now, inviting friends over to Casa Allegra at all hours of the day and night. This disrupted Clara's sleep and peace of mind. The two women soon had separate homes. The collection of Nina's photographs held at Hartford's Mark Twain Museum includes this picture of Nina on stage in costume as a nurse, with the caption, Walrus and the Carpenter, Pelican Theater, 1940. This may have been the play of that title written by Noel Langley, who is best known as the screenwriter for 1939's Wizard of Oz. One description of the play mentions a fierce and independent nurse. Nina wrote around this time, quote, if I do try to get into the movies, it's pretty well agreed, my nose would have to be fixed. But if I go to New York for stage work, I don't have to get it fixed immediately, end quote. Nina had her father's pronounced nose, and like his last name, she had it adjusted for the sake of a potential movie career. She had plastic surgery in the early 1940s. The new Nina looked like this. Afterward, she was concerned that, quote, the doctor had clipped off too much of the end and made her more snub-nosed than she had expected to be, end quote. A researcher named Carolyn Thomas Harnsberger met the family around this time. She soon became Clara's close friend and biographer. She unfortunately met Nina just when Nina's life and mental stability were unraveling at an increasing rate. In her book, Mark Twain's Clara, she records a conversation she had with Nina. Quote, "I asked her if she did not feel weighed down by her heritage, and she only shrugged and said, 'I disregard it.' She added that she could not bear to write, was not interested in music, and was only slightly attracted to acting." End quote. A decade later, in a 1953 letter to her daughter, Clara made some pointed comments about Nina's professionalism. Quote, "You may remember the agent I arranged for you, who told me in your presence he could not possibly take you seriously since you caroused at night and failed to meet your appointments in the daytime. You may also recall that Jacques made an appointment with a producer, but you sent someone else and did not appear yourself." End quote. A letter from a friend suggests that Nina was involved in a production of the stage play White Cargo in 1944. There is no evidence that she performed in any productions after 1944, on stage or otherwise. But in her notes from Mark Twain's Clara, Harnsberger provides this intriguing snippet. Quote, "There are plans to use her in the Twain Hadleyburg picture." End quote. Twain scholar Kent Rasmussen has extensively researched the movies based on Mark Twain's work. I asked if he knew anything about an unproduced film of the man that corrupted Hadleyburg. He suggested that it was likely an option from David O. Selznick, who had produced 1938's Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Selznick, of course, is best known as the producer of Gone with the Wind. The Hadleyburg project never happened, but one can't help but wonder what the result would have been like. Nina, starring in a Mark Twain story, produced by David O. Selznick. I'd buy a ticket to see that. Before leaving Nina's acting career, a quick look at the actors in her social circle provides a few items of note. As a lifelong fan of cheesy B movies, I was amused to learn that one of Nina's actor pals was Glenn Langan, whom she supported during his struggling early years. He was a minor Hollywood leading man in the 1940s, but the name Glenn Langan is well known to fans of sci-fi B movies as the star of the 1957 schlock masterpiece, The Amazing Colossal Man. I just love that Nina knew The Amazing Colossal Man. I sincerely hope that I am the first person to include a B movie poster in a presentation to the Conference on the State of Mark Twain Studies. But those aren't my only reasons for including this image. I also wanted to show that Langan was the most well-known quote-unquote star in Nina's Los Angeles circle, with one possible exception. The exception is Nina's lifelong friend, Pat Gleason. Research indicates this is the same Pat Gleason who had a long Hollywood career in bit parts in B movies, including the film noir classic Detour. Detour has been called one of the best B movies ever made. That Gleason is known for this downbeat study of ruined lives is sadly appropriate since he knew Nina at the end of her own ruined life. Gleason and Nina were so close that he was one of the few heirs named in her will. In fact, in January 1966, it was Pat Gleason who initiated the wellness check that resulted in the discovery of Nina's body. Nina had no talent or interest in music, and she told Carolyn Harnsberger in the early 40s that she could not bear to write. Yet she kept personal diaries for at least 20 years, from 1921 to 1941. The entire surviving content of those diaries runs to more than 1,000 pages. Not bad for someone who could not bear to write. It's true that she never wrote for publication. She was working on an autobiography at the time of her death, but that manuscript has unfortunately been lost. And as I discovered while reading her diary, she did have a gift for writing. Her 1924 diary is filled with passages like the following.
Then we drove back to Alkmaar. What lovely scenery we did pass. The dark green sky, the canals covered with pale green moss, white and red or gray and green houses, verdant meadows sometimes besprinkled with the yellowest dandelions, the black and white cows peacefully grazing, the brown windmills whirring thickly through the air, and the big shady trees that formed leafy arches overhead. We took the train back to Amsterdam.
Okay, I'm going to read that again. We then drove back to Alkmaar. But lovely scenery we did pass. The saffron sky, the canals covered with pale green moss, white and red or gray and green houses, verdant meadows sometimes besprinkled with the yellowest dandelions, the black and white cows peacefully grazing, the brown windmills whirring quickly through the air, and the big shady trees that form leafy arches overhead. We took the train back to Amsterdam. End quote. These pictures offer a nice segue to Nina's other creative talent, photography. She was lucky to grow up at the dawn of consumer photography. By 1921, 10-year-old Nina was already a confirmed shutterbug, happily taking pictures of a family trip to London. It was the start of a lifelong love affair. As late as 1963, she was enthusiastic to show her snapshots to Caroline Hornsby. Time does not permit me a thorough overview of Nina's photography, so I slipped a few of her photos in throughout this presentation, just to give you a sample. In her 1924 diary, Nina often mentions the photos she's taken and writes proudly of her photo albums. Those albums, containing hundreds of pictures, were preserved and are now part of the collection of Hartford's Mark Twain House and Museum. Here's a brief selection from Nina's albums. I particularly like this photo of the Ishimotos, Nina's fellow passengers on a transatlantic cruise. It shows a flair for posing and framing her subjects and capturing their personalities. Equally notable is what's not there. Nobody has their eyes closed, there are no distracting details in the foreground or background, no blur from camera movement, and this was taken on the deck of a ship at sea. In short, it's the work of a practiced photographer, even though she was only 13 years old. It's also worth noting that, unlike today's teens with their high-tech photo editing suites right in their phones, Nina had no way of even checking her shot. She had 6 or 8 pictures on a roll, and she wouldn't see them develop for days or weeks. Despite these limitations, she was able to take photos like these. Here's a Nina's eye view shot of Clara having lunch with her friends. Passengers passing the time on the trip across the Atlantic. Nina took a lot of pictures of the people and places around her, kind of documenting her life. It's regrettable that we have no film footage of Nina's acting, so we cannot see her express her talent for ourselves. But some footage of Nina does survive. In fact, just recently, a video of Asap turned up on YouTube. It shows him having it up for the camera. It's going to be stuck. Give me a second on that. Let's see. The video of Asap showed up on YouTube. There we go. Shows him hemming it up right there in the center with his friends, Leopold Godowski and Carl Friedberg. Toward the end of the clip, Clara and Nina join in the clowning. And with this happy little family scene, I leave you, hopefully, with a new perspective on Nina Gabrilowitsch.